to SEFORÍS MOOC. I am Plotnieks, research analyst at site and PhD candidate. SEFORÍS is an international research project on social enterprises funded by the European Commission. SEFORÍS sets out to explore the role that social enterprises play in the EU and beyond, in development of and evolution towards inclusive and innovative societies. This session focuses on social finance and more particularly how social entrepreneurs make use of their funding sources that come from market and non-market sources, but also how much revenues do they generate annually. Social finance is a new field that is attracting the attention of policymakers, business leaders, and philanthropists. Traditional finance market participants are also drawn to this field, pursuing new opportunities to access funds designated to correct certain societal and environmental problems. There are different estimates about the importance of the social finance, but analysts from different organizations expect the field of social finance to experience significant growth. For example, according to JP Morgan Global Research, the global investment opportunities is estimated between $400 billion and $1 trillion for 2020 for businesses focusing on low-income population and dealing with housing, water delivery, maternal health, primary education, and financial services sectors. Boston Consulting Group estimated the demand for social investment in the United Kingdom alone to grow on average 38% per year. Let's start with a short overview of the range of funding sources available to social entrepreneurs. I will then discuss the funding sources that are most popular among social entrepreneurs who participated in the SEFORÍS survey. Some funding comes from what we often call market sources. These are usually traditional financing, such as fee-for-service, product contracts, investments, loans, as well as some other recent types that carry strings attached, connected to achieving a social impact. An example of such recent tools are social impact bonds and pay-for-success contracts. The availability of these tools allows social entrepreneurs to raise funds from private investors. In this case, a government pays bondholders or private investors once the social impact has been achieved and verified. From non-market sources, social ventures receive funds in cash as grants and donations, as well as in-kind volunteering work. I also should mention two more important funding mechanisms used by social entrepreneurs. First, microlending. This funding mechanism is central in the field of economic development, pioneered by the work of Dr. Yunus and Grameen Bank, and usually targets specific social enterprises. Second, online crowdfunding platforms. The ubiquity of the internet and proliferation of such platforms like Kickstarter or Kiva have enabled social entrepreneurs to tap into financial resources provided by a large number of individuals scattered all over the world. So what funding sources are most popular among social entrepreneurs who participated in the SEFORÍS survey? We asked managers of social ventures to tell us about which financing sources their organizations tapped into during the past 12 months. We also measured how much each source contributed to the overall funding of the organization over the year. Overwhelmingly, the main source of funds for social entrepreneurs were sales of products and fees for services. The share of contribution towards overall financing varied across countries, but most of the social entrepreneurs indicated sales and fees as the major financing source. For example, in Sweden on average, almost 53% of the organization's financing came from fees, with a slightly larger part coming from fees sales to government or government organizations than from fees sales to others. In other countries where SEFORÍS surveyed social entrepreneurs, the situation was similar. In Portugal, for example, half of social entrepreneurs' budget came from fees and sales. In the UK, the contribution was higher, up to 60%. And in Spain, almost 3/4 of social ventures' budget was attributed to proceeds from the fees and sales of products and services. The German social entrepreneurs indicated slightly a lower share of total contributions to the whole budget of their organization by fees and sales, on average 43%. However, it still contributes the largest share of their budget. As in the case of the Swedish social enterprises, government and its agencies are major customers of social enterprises. Furthermore, governments go beyond mere customers' role. They constitute the next major source of funding from social ventures by giving out grants. In Sweden, on average, grants make up about 36% of social enterprises' total financing. Among these, government grants comprise the largest part, nearly 22%. Grants represent about 30% of total revenues of the surveyed social enterprises in the UK and Germany. In Portugal, their share is slightly larger, on average around 35%. Other sources of financing are of relatively smaller size. However, donations make up about 1/10 of the German social enterprises budget. Because revenue is an important variable while looking for funding, we also discuss here the revenue levels from our SEFORÍS sample. Let me mention already that the revenues is an important indicator of social enterprises that speaks to the size of a venture, but it may not be the most important variable to assess the success of a social enterprise. The foremost objective of social enterprises is creating social impact. However, since it is difficult to capture the entire social impact of social enterprises' activity, revenue is still an interesting variable to look at and often a key variable to access the funding. So how much do social enterprises earn? In other words, how much revenues do they generate annually? If we use bins that represent different ranges of revenues, we can group the enterprises surveyed by SEFORÍS in 5 groups. In most of the countries, the majority of social enterprises fall into 2 major groups, from 2 extreme bins. According to what our respondents reported, more than 40% of social ventures from Germany, Spain and Portugal earned from €1 million and more. In Portugal and Spain, the group with the lowest revenues, under €80,000, represented about 1/5 of all enterprises. In Germany, this group's share was slightly higher, with 27%. Sweden stands out by having more even distribution across the revenue categories, as we see on the chart. About 1/5 of Swedish respondents reported to have earned more than €1 million in 2012, 14% less than 80,000, and the group between 80 and 200,000 euros representing 33% of the surveyed social enterprises. With respect to revenue growth, the majority of the surveyed social ventures experienced growth in 2012. The UK stands out among the other countries. Almost 56% of the British social entrepreneurs reported significant revenue growth, from 40% and more. Sweden follows the UK with 30% of social ventures having reportedly grown more than 40%. At the same time, most of the Germany's social ventures experienced moderate, up to 20% growth of their revenues, which makes up 61%. Most of social ventures that reported negative revenue growth in 2012 were in Portugal, the least were in Germany, about 9%. Let me add that, of course, one should look at the revenue levels and growth rates, taking into account numbers of the overall economy and size. The newness of the field offers social entrepreneurs both opportunities and challenges. On the one hand, the increasing availability of funds designated strictly to projects with pro-social goals provides entrepreneurs with more choices of funding their ventures. Public and private organizations involved in social entrepreneurship have developed a number of innovative financing instruments. One of the examples that we already mentioned are pay-for-success contracts or social impact bonds. Crowdfunding is a rapidly growing phenomenon, thanks to the emergence of which social enterprises harness the growing connectivity of the world by raising funds through online platforms such as Kickstarter or Kiva. Moreover, social finance also serves as a binding element that brings different players together into collaborations. These collaborations span different types of organizations. As our survey evidence shows, they include non-profits, for-profit firms, government, and academic organizations. On the other hand, strict strings attached and difficulty of measuring social impact can be challenging for nascent social entrepreneurs working on innovative solutions to social and environmental problems. Financing is seen as an obstacle by social entrepreneurs, and first of all for innovation, both in product and service. A lack of funding was indicated as the main innovation stifling factor by the respondents from all the countries but Portugal. 17% of Portuguese social entrepreneurs surveyed by SEFORÍS placed financing after market-related barriers and regulation. In the UK, 60% of social ventures named it as an innovation barrier, followed by German social entrepreneurs, Spanish and Swedish. Going forward, the field of social entrepreneurship will keep growing in the upcoming years. Besides the increasing interest of private sector organizations, governments and NGOs to solve the wicked societal problems through markets, the labor force and regular consumer markets have been joined by the millennials, many of whom are finishing their college degrees. Financing the pursuit of social impact is and will be an important issue and constraint faced by entrepreneurs. As our survey data shows, the question of obtaining financing is seen as the main obstacle by the entrepreneurs in most of the countries. The fees for services and sales of products remain the dominant source of funds for social enterprises, with grants representing a significant contribution to social ventures budget. While the volumes of annual revenues of social ventures vary across the countries, the overwhelming majority of our respondents reported year-to-year growth of their revenues. These were the first insights from our SEFORÍS research in the field of social finance. Thank you for your interest in our session and good luck with all your exciting projects solving very important challenges that our society is facing. Stay tuned for the next model, in which our colleagues from the Hertie School of Governance in Germany will present to you their insights on organizational governance. Thank you.